Inside the ovary, a tiny biological journey begins every month. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely cinematic, microscopic story unfolding right inside the human body. We're going to look closely at the incredibly precise cycle that governs female fertility.
Now, this epic biological journey takes roughly 28 days on average. But it's not just some simple countdown. It actually requires a perfectly orchestrated symphony of hormones, cells, and some seriously split-second timing to pull off.
Section 1. The egg and the follicle. Cellular distinction.
Okay, so to really understand this cycle, we first have to meet our two main protagonists. They're honestly confused all the time, but the difference is absolutely crucial. The egg, or oocyte, is the actual reproductive germ cell. Think of it as the inhabitant. The follicle, on the other hand, is the fluid-filled sac made up of granulosa cells that acts as its highly active hormone-producing house.
And the sheer scale of this? It's mind-blowing. A female is actually born with 1 to 2 million of these primordial follicles just waiting in her ovaries. By puberty, that number drops to about 500,000. And after her first period, well, roughly 1,000 of these follicles are lost every single month. It's essentially a microscopic, biological survival of the fittest.
Section 2. FSH stimulates growth, the preantral phase.
So what exactly kicks this whole process off? It's a hormone with a very fitting name, follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH for short. Produced by the pituitary gland way up in the brain, it travels all the way down to the ovaries just to recruit a specific cohort or group of those dormant follicles.
FSH works its magic by binding exclusively to the receptors on the follicle's granulosa cells, and this triggers some really rapid multiplication. As the follicle starts to expand, a protective fluid-filled space called an antrum develops, completely encasing the growing egg.
Section 3. The dominant follicle rises, survival of the largest.
Now check out this wild hormonal feedback loop. As the larger follicles grow, they use aromatase to convert androgens into estrogen, pumping massive amounts of it into the blood. But here's the clever biological trick. That rising estrogen sends a negative feedback signal right back up to the brain, basically telling it to start cutting off the FSH supply.
Because the brain is turning down that FSH, the smaller follicles are literally starved. They undergo degeneration and just die off. But one large follicle actually survives. It's developed enough receptors to stay super sensitive even as FSH levels drop. So this dominant follicle claims victory and just keeps right on growing.
Section 4. The LH surge, triggering ovulation.
Okay, so we now have this massive estrogen-producing dominant follicle sitting right near the surface of the ovary. But you've got to wonder, what actually forces the egg to finally escape? What triggers the breakout?
Well, the answer is a massive hormonal flip. When that estrogen hits a critical peak, it triggers the brain to release a huge spike of luteinizing hormone, or LH. This LH surge happens roughly 34 to 36 hours before ovulation. And as a fun fact, this is the exact hormone spike that at-home ovulation kits are actually looking for.
The actual mechanics of this release are surprisingly violent at a microscopic level. The LH surge stimulates proteolytic enzymes and prostaglandins. These enzymes act like microscopic scissors, literally digesting the collagen right out of the follicular wall. A small hole called a stigma forms on the ovary surface. The wall gives way, and the mature egg is explosively released. Section 5. The egg's journey after ovulation. Right after ovulation on day 0, the egg is swept into the fallopian tube, and this opens up a very narrow critical window. Over the next 1 to 5 days, as the egg travels, sperm, which can survive in the reproductive tract for up to 5 days, has a chance to fertilize it. If fertilized, the embryo implants in the uterus between days 5 and 12. If not, the egg simply breaks down. This tiny window is literally the foundation of human conception.
Section 6. The corpus luteum, follicle transformation.
But back in the ovary, the story of that empty, ruptured follicle is surprisingly not over yet. In a really remarkable second act, it remodels itself completely into a new, temporary structure called the corpus luteum. It essentially flips from being a pre-ovulatory estrogen factory into a totally new structure secreting massive amounts of a different hormone, progesterone.
So why this sudden shift? Well, because progesterone from the corpus luteum is the ultimate preparer for a potential pregnancy. It thickens and stabilizes the uterine lining, making it perfectly receptive just in case that traveling egg was fertilized.
If implantation doesn't happen, the corpus luteum stops working, the lining sheds during menstruation, and this entire epic cycle begins all over again.
It truly is a masterclass in biological engineering happening right inside the human body. Think about it. If our biology can orchestrate this cinematic masterpiece every single month without us even knowing, what other incredible stories are unfolding inside you right now? Because as we've seen today, from follicle growth to ovulation, the egg's journey is controlled by a precise hormonal system.